For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows.
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer the resolution previously noticed. Mr. Speaker, whereas Father Patrick Conroy has served honorably as House Chaplain since May 25th of 2011, when he was then appointed by Speaker John Boehner in consultation with Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. Whereas Father Conroy had been reappointed and approved by the House of Representatives on 3 separate occasions, most recently January 3rd of 2017. Whereas on April 16, 2018, the nation's first Jesuit and only the second Catholic chaplain of the United States House of Representatives submitted his resignation before the full House. Whereas this resignation was forced by Paul D. Ryan, Speaker of the House of Representatives and members of the House Republican Conference. Whereas the Speaker's team said, and quote, "The decision to remove the chaplain was his, Speaker Ryan's," end quote. Whereas the lack of notification of his forced resignation or adequate explanation provided by Speaker Paul D. Ryan is not reflective of the integrity of the House of Representatives. Whereas on November 6, 2017, during debate on the GOP tax scam, the chaplain led an opening prayer asking God to bless Congress and for Congress to, quote, "guarantee that there are not winners and losers under the new tax laws, but benefits balanced and shared by all Americans," end quote. Whereas this prayer reflects the core values of many Americans, in particular people of the Catholic faith, including care and concern for the poor and the marginalized. Whereas on April 9, 2018, Pope Francis published his 3rd apostolic exhortation entitled Gaudet et Exultate, or Rejoice and Be Heard, which states that Christians must care for the poor, the sick, and the immigrant. Whereas under the GOP tax bill, more than 80% of its benefits flow to the richest 1% and the corporate special interests, ignoring the needs for struggling men and women and children. Whereas this prayer has been reported to be the chief reason for Father Conroy's forced resignation by the Republican Congress. Whereas the dismissal of Father Conroy following this prayer shows Republicans' true refusal to embody the values of faith and charity in their legislative work. Whereas Father Conroy's forced resignation is concerning to a number of members on both sides of the aisle. Whereas the House of Representatives would benefit from being guided by a chaplain with a commitment to caring about those most in need. Whereas the rights of members of the House of Representatives were undermined when the leader of one party made a unilateral decision to dismiss the chaplain. Whereas this forced resignation has compromised the dignity of the House of Representatives by politicizing the office of the House chaplain. Whereas the circumstances behind his resignation compromise the integrity and the dignity of the House of Representatives. Resolved that there is hereby established a select committee to investigate the actions and motivations behind the resignation of the House chaplain. The select committee shall be comprised of 6 members, of which 3 shall be appointed by the chair of the Committee on Ethics and 3 by the ranking member of the Committee on Ethics. The Select Committee shall investigate the motivations and actions of the Speaker behind the resignation of the chaplain.
Now recognize the gentleman from New York to offer the resolution just noticed. Does the gentleman offer the resolution?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
The clerk will report the resolution.